We have called together the Sunday Roundtable. Joining us this morning is Democratic political analyst Marianne Marsh and Republican political analyst Rob Gray. Thank you so much for being here. You just heard what Governor Sununu had to say. Your reaction?
Well, what's interesting to me, especially on all the topics about abortion, he always said, I wouldn't sign this or I'll let this go. He never said he wouldn't veto these measures. And in New Hampshire, if a governor doesn't sign legislation that passes the legislature, it automatically becomes law. He could have vetoed that invasive abortion ruling up there, legislation up there that denies women access to abortion and make an invasive ultrasound in all this. He has another bill coming to him where any man could claim to be the father of a child and a woman, and that woman cannot get an abortion until she proves otherwise. He has not said, he said he wouldn't sign it, but he's never said he wouldn't veto it. The live or free die state is becoming more and more like Texas, and the problem there is, I think it's going to jeopardize their opportunity to be the first in the nation primary because of the way they treat women, and that's a serious matter in New Hampshire.
Do you agree with that, Rob?
Listen, what I think is he's a no-nonsense governor. I think there are a lot of Massachusetts Republicans and Massachusetts unenrolled voters watching today who said, hey, he should take a crack down here. We need somebody after Charlie Baker, and we don't have a strong candidate right now. So I thought he came off well, no nonsense.
Unless you're a woman.
Governor Baker is again trying to get healthcare providers and insurers to spend 30% more over the next 3 years on primary and mental health. He would do it by cutting other lucrative hospital services. He tried to do this once before. Do you think he's going to be able to get this done this time?
It's going to be hard. There's a huge hospital bureaucracy out there. Boston hospitals are trying to expand their empire far beyond Boston and put community hospitals out of business. I think Charlie Baker's going to have to deal with that a lot more than this issue. He'll probably get a small piece of it.
Is Rob right about that, Marianne?
I think the key here is he tried to do this before the pandemic and was unable to. Now he has 9 months left as governor. Ambitious to try to do this, no question. Massachusetts needs more primary health care and behavioral health, but with 9 months left, I think it'll be the next governor who has to tackle this.
Monica Cannon-Grant, the voice and face of violence and fighting that back in Boston, was indicted this week by the feds for fraud involving pandemic money and using money from their nonprofit for personal use. That was the accusation. So how much damage does this do to those who embraced her? A lot of people embraced her, politicians, organizations. The Boston Globe named her as one of their Bostonians of the year.
I don't think it will, because who knew? Right? Until this investigation took place and she was indicted, no one had any idea. So I think it's hard to say that anyone who was involved with her should be, guilt by association. But without that knowledge, how would you know?
It's the dangers of glomming on to social media insta fame. And that's what a lot of politicians, the Boston Globe, Boston Magazine did here with Monica Cannon-Grant. She's a bad person, indicted on 18 federal charges, and did a lot of terrible things like trying to spark a race war in Hopkinton over a teenage suicide from a progressive Democratic female DA who she attacked essentially as being racist on determining that it was a suicide. Well deserved, the charges she's facing.
I think a lot of people forgot about that, but I think it's key that you brought it up.
We talked about it on this show at the time.
We did. Mayor Wu said this week that she has not decided on whether she'll endorse before the gubernatorial primary. On one hand, there's Maura Healey with an enormous lead in polls and money. On the other, Sonia Chang Diaz may be more in line with Wu's values. How much does her endorsement really matter in a race like this, Rob?
It only matters if Wu pulls a mayor bites dog play here and endorses Chang Diaz, who's the underdog. I don't think she'll take a political risk like that. She'll either not do anything or go with the front runner.
Do you agree with that, Marianne?
I mean, that's possible. The fact is both Maura Healey and Sonia Chang Diaz both endorsed Michelle Wu. Maura did it a week beforehand. So she either waits or doesn't endorse at all, to Rob's point. That said, I think people forget Michelle Wu didn't run any slates in this caucus process, not one, unlike her predecessors. Instead, she took the time to train kids and people, activists in Boston, how to organize slates, how to become a delegate. And I thought that was really, really smart, because now she has a bunch of people who are trained to participate in politics that weren't otherwise, and that could come in handy later.
She is doing politics very differently.
Very smart.
From past mayors in Boston.
Very smart.